ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the world's most watched professional wrestling news program. It is called the Pro Wrestling Report. Damian Nelson sitting alongside Frank Costantino. Frank, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
It's been a couple of weeks.
It's been a couple of weeks, world traveler as I am, but I am back in
This is Milwaukee.
Corporate headquarters.
The man they call Meathead's going to be joining us for the second portion of this program as he is on assignment with some hooker right now. But let's get to the beginning of the show and the top story, Frank, which is this past Monday night, it all happened. The rumors were true.
Yep.
Y2J, Chris Jericho, comes to Raw to save the show. We saw Randy Orton come down to the ring at the end of the night, at the end of a good Raw, by the way, come out down the ring at the end of the night. He's waiting for his torchbearer to bring the torch from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, which I'm not sure could happen in a 2-hour period.
No.
And he is thwarted by a clothesline in the back by a man who could only be Chris Jericho. From there, we see an amazing introduction and sequence, if you will, in Fort Lauderdale for the return of Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho comes out, does a promo with Randy Orton. Frank, how was the return, the much-hyped and the much-anticipated return of Chris Jericho in your book?
It went over extremely well. First, kudos, and we know we have fans all over the world. If you are watching in Florida and went to that show, kudos to the fans in Fort Lauderdale. They went nuts. It came off well. It's a new, fresh, but old look. You know,
even though it's been about 3 years since it's been
3
gone,
years.
And that is well beyond the statute of wrestling fans' memories and limitations.
Right. Exactly. In general. But overall, it went over well. The hype was there, and you know how that is. It's been a build-up, and you're like, the letdown, where's it going to come? It didn't. The energy was there, and a great job by Jericho. It is 3 years, but it was like he was gone 3 days.
Gone for so long, yet launched right back into the top of the show and right back into a seemingly inevitable title match with Randy Orton sometime in the very near future. Frank, we don't know if Jericho has been in the ring at all in the last several years, specifically in the last few months, to combat what is going to certainly be a high level of ring rust. How is Jericho going to get back into his game, if you will, or is this something where we're going to see him just thrown back into the ring and expect to have it?
I hope it doesn't go that way. I hope he's in the mix, but what I don't want is get Randy Orton and Chris Jericho in a ring right away. Maybe have Randy Orton become afraid and I'm just throwing off the top of my head, maybe like Santino, kind of push Jericho out of the way. You get the entertainment part of it, and then there's the build-up, where Randy Orton can come in the middle of a match or end of the match just to, throw an RKO or whatever. Build that up. It's good to get him in the mix because that's fresh, and I've always said I like that, but not right away. You have a lot of time. The thing that I want to bring up to you is he brought up entertainment a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear that a lot from wrestlers much anymore. You're going to get entertainment. That's what makes Chris Jericho. I know Meathead's not going to like this, but
well, he's not here.
The charisma is what makes Chris Jericho. The wrestling, it's good. It's not great, but it's good. But it's the charisma and the entertainment that at least I enjoy. I want to see that. I don't know if Randy Orton has that to make Chris Jericho become his best. So
we have dubbed on this very program Randy Orton one of the greatest prick heels in the history of professional wrestling. And Randy Orton has done it. Let's talk about Survivor Series this past Sunday.
He
went in, he beat Shawn Michaels 1, 2, 3 in the center of the ring. Obviously, not able to use the super kick with Shawn Michaels, but still, Randy Orton has defeated him. Triple H. Name him, he's beat him. Randy Orton being built as a major star in WWE, as he should be. Remember, Frank, it was not a year ago that we were talking about whether or not Randy Orton would be still in WWE. And now you see where he is, and now his latest challenge is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, Frank, you speculated and asked, was he smaller? Had he lost a little bit of his mass? Maybe it's the haircut, don't know. But that goes back to the ring rust. Will we see Jericho in OVW? Probably. We're going to see him wrestling some dark matches on TV tapings over the next few weeks. But the week of return starts with Y2J coming back, which, it's one of those things where everybody knew what it was going to be. The last 2 weeks, we have not spoken his name on this program.
Right.
But there was always that chance that it would be some type of swerve and it wouldn't quite be Chris Jericho, even though it was obvious. But The way WWE delivered this angle and delivered this return was one of the best things they've done in a number of years as far as surprising the fans, because everyone knew or thought they knew that it was going to be Jericho. Yet WWE left that bit of intrigue there. Is it not? You see on the forum, you see on websites all over the world, people were speculating, what do these Save Us videos mean? What is it? Is it HBK's return? Nope, wasn't that. What is it? It did ultimately end up being Jericho's return, and very well done return by Jericho. Now, one thing, Frank, too, is you saw Jericho before the actual return, if you will, with the clothesline in the back, which is the same thing they did in July of 2002 when Eric Bischoff came into the company.
Exactly.
When Eric Bischoff was seen in back by Booker T, and then it was like, oh my God, it's really him. I think you get a little bit more pop out of that.
You
when
sure
they
do.
go out.
You sure do, because then it's the anticipation is still there. And for him just kind of have his arms out and the guy laying down.
Signature.
It worked well. And WWE this year has had a lot of challenges. And this one was, okay, now we have talent coming back. How do we make it work? The timing is good.
Timing's perfect. And we said the first of our many returns.
Right.
Timing's perfect.
And this, thrusting him with Randy Orton, easily can take you to WrestleMania. Easily. Got to be done right, but the timing is good for it to reach that point, that pinnacle, which is WrestleMania.
Well, the way to do it is the Heyman philosophy. They don't touch each other until, and this is not just Orton and Y2J, but if you want to build a big storyline, big feud, big angle, those two combatants don't touch each other until that match, whenever it may be. But be that as it may, Y2J back.
Yep.
Frank, and along with myself, saying it was a great debut, great reintroduction to Monday Night Raw, where Raw is again Jericho, and it's going to provide some, as Frank said, some very entertaining weeks of professional wrestling in the next few weeks. And I think what needs to be talked about as we go down the list here of returns and brand changes and things of that nature is a lot of people have been saying over the last few weeks, Raw has been getting damn good. And while the ratings may not necessarily back that up, only a 3.5 this week, but I'm sure the overrun, which was substantial, about 15 minutes of overrun, got a pretty good rating. We don't have that information here now, but Raw really stepping up. Santino Marella, surprise hit.
Right.
Triple H is back. You've now got Jericho. You've got Orton owning the brand. You've got the Divas, which are red hot. You've got Beth Phoenix leading that pack.
Right.
You've got Melina and Mickie James, everybody kissing on each other. And you've just got a lot going on Raw. Now, on the other side, SmackDown's pretty weak at this point, if you look comparatively, along with ECW.
Now, I want to ask you this. They could have had the swerve. It wouldn't have made any sense. Would this have worked, Jericho coming on SmackDown?
No. What could work is doing this, and this is not what they did, but doing this this return on Raw and then having an appearance on SmackDown. And keep in mind, I was thinking as I watched ECW this week, ECW was live,
Right.
And while there are so many reasons why SmackDown will never be live, specifically, it doesn't make sense to do a live show and have the production crew on Monday and then on Friday, because in the middle of the week you got to pay them to be on the road or whatever. But be that as it may, SmackDown, shows don't need to be live. That's been proven.
Right.
And SmackDown can be good. I don't think you're ever going to get a splash on SmackDown unless it is live. And I think that there are certain times of the year where you need to put forth that effort to make it live. Make a special show. Do a live SmackDown. We have not seen a live SmackDown, I don't think, since September 13, 2001, which is after September 11th when they couldn't tape the show.
And because maybe it's also on regular TV.
It's on UPN, right?
It's on UPN.
CW.
Right. So maybe that's part of the reason why they'll never take that chance, because it's not really cable. It's over-the-air station. But I as I thought, after Jericho, I'm like, this could never have worked on SmackDown.
Oh.
Obviously Raw's Jericho and all that branding, but
But there have been big things that have happened on SmackDown. Undertaker winning the title after Edge got injured.
Right.
Several big title changes have happened on SmackDown. They can do it, and then they pub it on WWE.com to get more views for SmackDown later in that week.
Right.
They can do big things on SmackDown. The only problem is the spontaneity of it is gone because it's a tape show and everybody knows what's going to happen. But remember, when Eric Bischoff said, Mick Foley, or Tony Schiavone said, Mick Foley was going to win the WWF title that night on Raw, and that's going to put asses in the seats. They left in droves to go to Raw to see how that happened. So there is always that intrigue as to, yes, this is going to happen on SmackDown, but really how, and I'd like to see it happen. So there's always that intrigue.
interesting.
The next big return, ladies and gentlemen, which was announced this past Monday on Raw, is, thank God, Ric Flair returning to Raw in Charlotte, North Carolina, Frank.
Woo!
His hometown, where, Ric Flair is actually from Wisconsin.
No.
I am told.
He was born here?
Born in Wisconsin, graduated from Beaver Dam High School, went to college in Minneapolis, lived in Minneapolis for a number of years, and then down to Charlotte, North Carolina.
We got to confirm that.
The interns,
I'm thinking
the interns
Memphis.
brought that to me this past week.
I thought it was Memphis.
Memphis, Tennessee.
That's
Beaver Dam High School.
Anyways, Beaver Dam.
Charlotte next week, Frank. Ric Flair returns to the ring after several weeks and/or months of disputes, reported disputes, contractually with WWE. Ric Flair also endorsing presidential candidates, none of which names we know. I forget who it is.
Was it Ron Paul?
No. RuPaul is running for president?
He or she?
And also working on Ric Flair finance down in North Carolina. But Frank, next week on Raw, Charlotte, Ric Flair.
He's
That's
back.
Flair country if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and the place will pop like crazy, and it's good. Again, the charisma's always there for Ric Flair. The wrestling is not. He tries his best.
The wrestling's not what it was, but Ric Flair can still deliver and carry a person in a match and he can bring it.
He can do it. My thought is, where do you put him? And we've said this a while. Can you risk giving him one more shot?
That is the next question. Will this be his final run? The return of Flair, maybe this only goes through this upcoming WrestleMania 24, and Flair has his farewell match. Frank, it's got to happen at some point. Flair has said he's not interested in being a road agent. He's not interested in managing. He's not interested in being a professional wrestling unless he is wrestling. With that being said, will this be his final run, and will there be a 17th world title reign to honor that final run? Ric Flair, very well respected, if not the most respected professional wrestler by the fans right now today. I don't know if there's another wrestler who's more respected for Ric Flair. And as Jim Ross said this past Monday on Raw, arguably the greatest professional wrestler ever in the business, Ric Flair. And the greatest showman in the business ever, Ric Flair.
Because he had both the charisma and the wrestling ability in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
And he put those together, where Hogan just had the charisma, the wrestling ability was average at best. But did they give Hogan a title shot one of his last times out?
Oh, I remember he came back in 1993, which was really his last run in WWE. WrestleMania 9, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada. Bret Hart loses to Yokozuna. Yokozuna's a champion. Hogan comes out to save Bret. He's got the black eye. Bret sends him in the ring. Yokozuna gets the title match against Hogan. Leg drop, 1, 2, 3. Bobby Heenan says, "You mean to tell me Yokozuna was a champion for 5 minutes?"
Exactly.
Got the belt, and then lost it at the first King of the Ring back to Yokozuna a couple of months later, offered to WCW. And then, remember, after WrestleMania 18, the big surprise Hogan revitalization, if you will, he gets the title at Backlash the next month. So I think WWE would do what the fans want. If the fans know that Ric Flair is in his final run and he's in a title match, either he's going to lose it and bow out gracefully, or he is going to win that title and keep it for however long that is.
Right.
Just one more run is all he has said he wants.
The way that it could work then is having him win the Royal Rumble.
For the first time since 92? Did he win in 92 and 93 or just 92? 92 it was number 1 or 2.
I can't, that slips my memory, but you have him win it, not where he's the Iron Man and wrestles the whole 60 minutes because he died, but he just, all of a sudden, he just happens to be one of the last 3 wrestlers there, and the crowd is like, wait a minute, this could happen.
If Rey Mysterio won the Royal Rumble, Ric Flair can win the Royal Rumble.
Why not? You don't need Triple H there anymore. You don't need HBK there anymore. Ric Flair has one, and this is my opinion, obviously, one last run. Not only for his sake, but that fan base that still watches just for him. I'd say go for it. You can't. It can't hurt to give him one more shot. And I don't know if you do it at WrestleMania, but give him one more shot. Why not? And then say, Rick, thank you very much for everything you've done for wrestling. Bye.
Can this return mimic the biggest Flair return in recent history, which is that at Monday Nitro when he came back in Greensboro, North Carolina, with Arn Anderson in the ring and J.J. Dillon in the ring and Bischoff coming out and him calling Bischoff a lying, cheating son of a bitch and blah, 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 blah.
You know, he hasn't been gone long enough for that.
I think he was gone for, that's true. He was gone for a little longer that time.
4 months, maybe now, since the last time. But what I don't want to have him see is like Umaga come out or some monster.
Umenga.
Come out, you know, blast him up, and then that's it. Because then that tells me that Rick is just, he doesn't care anymore. He just wants to do whatever. And that would upset me being a fan of his.
So we've got Flair returning next Monday on Raw.
Yeah.
We've got Jericho returning this past Monday on Raw. We've got Edge returning at the Survivor Series this past Sunday. He's a little bitter, by the way, and getting involved in the Hell in a Cell match between the Batista and The Undertaker. A good match, by the way. And then we see Edge back on this Friday SmackDown. Now, for those of you who haven't watched SmackDown yet, Frank, for some reason, Edge is in a romantic
Vicky Guerrero
situation with Vicky. I think he had sexual relations with that woman, Miss Guerrero, who gets tombstone pile driven and carried out on a stretcher.
That is Vicky Guerrero again. Well, not again, but she does. And that's... I never liked her. I don't know why. It doesn't fit. It's kind of sick. but we'll see. I mean, Edge is, you know, he's come out and done some different things. We were all kind of creeped out a little bit with him and Matt Hardy at the time, and his, you know, the way he kissed Lita, and it was just, it was kind of uneasy. And now it's really uneasy with Vicky Guerrero.
But here's the problem. First 6 months of the year, you're losing all these people in WWE to injuries.
Right.
Second 6 months of the year, we've seen Triple H return. We've seen Rey Mysterio return. We've seen Shawn Michaels return. We've seen Ric Flair now coming back next week. Y2J, who wasn't on the radar at all, coming back as well. Booker T leaving.
Over.
We see also now soon to be returning Bobby Lashley,
Right.
then followed by John Cena, which should be somewhere around WrestleMania. So as damaging as these departures are at times to WWE, are they getting it back on the flip side with the return?
They are. They're getting their stars that they've built up. As much as you were a fan or not a fan of Bobby Lashley, there were people that, hey, I'm gonna pay to see this guy because he looked like a freak. He was just, you know, he's a specimen, and people, wow. Plus he was young. And then he gets, you know, the injuries. These guys, and I don't know if Jericho's necessarily injured. I just think he needed the time off. Or just,
He was done at the time.
He was done. But yeah, that's important. But what's most important is where you're bringing these guys back. You know, if you're going to bring the majority of these guys back on Raw, what does that do to the SmackDown brand? You know, eventually it's going to get to a point, whether it's a year or 2 or 3 years from now, where, you know, you're just going to have cross-promote the whole thing every week. You know, you don't want to go that route, but if these stars are going to they're going to come back to Raw, it's just going to lose that luster of SmackDown.
Look at what also has happened. We've seen a lot of superstars step up and get their chance. John Morrison, Jeff Hardy,
Right.
Kennedy, Santino Marella, Umaga. We've seen so many stars have to step into that leadership role and take it and run with it. And at the end of the day, we've just got more top talents in the organization to enjoy. Now, as you said, it's all very lopsided, all on the premier program Raw right now, and you know, there are reasons for that. But at the same time, we've got now all this influx of new talent coming in and returning talent, and how do you do it? You know, Rey Mysterio returned on SmackDown. You saw him on Raw a couple of times, but the promos and everything happened on SmackDown at SummerSlam.
Right.
Edge, same thing. Not on Raw, came back to SmackDown. So you still have those little surprise elements, if you will, coming up on those programs.
It needs the balance. It needs a balance there.
Speaking of a balance, could the organizations be a little more balanced now as we've seen another acquisition by TNA? Total Nonstop Action Wrestling presents TNA Genesis this past Sunday on, 2 Sundays ago on pay-per-view, and I bet I was lucky enough to be at in Orlando, Florida. Booker T and Sharmell, big name, big star, big talent. Booker T, not...
Big shock.
Yeah, Booker T was expected, folks, to be the mystery partner of Sting. He was the mystery partner, but here's what's different about this as opposed to Team 3D, Christian Cage, and things of that nature. It's Booker T and Sharmell, recent former WWE champion, recent top-of-the-program talent, who you now have in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Huge acquisition, and he looked genuinely happy to be at the show. I will also say that the debut and the introduction of Sharmell to the mix was perfectly done, because it's like, oh, Booker T's here. Wait a minute. Nobody was really thinking about Sharmell in the Impact Zone.
No.
Then later on in the match, here she comes for a cat fight with Karen Angle. Well done, perfectly executed.
Exactly.
Booker T looked good, looked great, looked happy, looked to be where he wanted to be on Genesis.
He looked relieved. It was like it was a homecoming for him. And as it was like, you know what? I don't have any pressure here.
No politics. He's been
wrestle.
vocal about those politics over in WWE.
He could just wrestle, have some fun, and it showed in his mannerisms and just his overall look. And Sharmell, as you mentioned, that executed really well.
And then this past week on Impact, oh no, you didn't! When Christian Cage called her a scallywag. Oh no, you didn't!
It worked out well, and obviously he'll be thrusted right up in the top.
As he should.
As he should.
As he should. I mean, another choice. Kurt Angle was a choice. Christian Cage was a choice. Booker T was a choice to come to TNA over WWE. That's a significant statement, folks. And I tell you, the energy level at Genesis was amazing when Booker T came out and Booker T participated in that match. Didn't win, and he shouldn't have won, but just an amazing event and an amazing.
Tell us a little bit about being at a taping. What is it like?
Wasn't my first TNA taping, but was my first TNA pay-per-view.
Right.
What we're going to do now is actually take a break.
We'll take a break.
And we're going to give our fans watching online a little bit more information about Blizzard Brawl 3 coming up in just a few weeks here in Milwaukee. And when we come back, I think that other guy's here, and we'll talk about TNA Genesis. We'll be right back here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
On a cold December night 2 years ago. It's now the event of the season. 97.3 The Brew and Great Lakes Championship Wrestling presents Blizzard Brawl 3. Friday, December 7th at the Ramada Convention Center in Milwaukee. Reuniting Axe and Smash Demolition. Plus Road Dogg Jesse J, El Snow, Scotty 2 Hottie, and Grandmaster Sexy Joey Mercury in the GLCW Ladies title match. Get ticket info and more online now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. Damian Nelson sitting here alongside Frank Cosentino. If I ignore him, will he go away?
It's Johnny Case.
And what I want you to do is no matter what you do, baby, just keep it sexy.
You actually look like, you ever watch Reno 9/11?
Oh, yeah.
It's the other guy.
Yeah, I look like Junior. Right? Junior?
I don't watch the show. I just see the commercials, and there's some guy who looks as ridiculous as you do right now with that thing on your face.
Never let it be said that I will not do what I have to do to amuse our viewers.
And you don't even have to smell them, folks. Before the break, we were talking about TNA Genesis, the pay-per-view.
I was watching you in
2 weeks
control.
ago on pay-per-view. Did you leave the money on the dresser, or you were with a girl we were talking
When I was at a place on Saturday, I'm not going to mention where, but I kept asking if I could install my cable.
Beverly Hills Cop 2? When it wasn't Joey. Was it Joey? Who were the two cops?
There was Taggart and Rosebud.
Taggart had left his woman,
Rosebud.
or the woman had left his
Yes.
had left Taggart, and then he said that it wasn't the cable that brought her back, it was your cable. Took me too long to tell that story.
Yeah, it wasn't as funny when you waited.
The little tangents don't start until Jamook gets here. TNA Genesis, folks. I thought it was an excellent wrestling show. Again, it was the first TNA wrestling show I had been to on pay-per-view. I'd been to a taping before, been in the Impact Zone, which was an amazing experience the first time, some 2 years ago that I did it. This time, a couple of things I noticed that were different, substantially different from the last time I was there, and interesting about the show. There is a revelation coming out of this story, folks. The crowd was not as hot as I thought. The crowd was a lot more regular than I thought, too. A lot of people come to see the wrestling show, and that is partly a problem, in my opinion. Unlike in ECW, where you had a hot crowd every week in the bingo hall, at TNA you have a more critical, more, I know this wrestler, so I'm here because of that kind of crowd, at least the people I was surrounded by. Lots of, as Bubba called them this week, which is funny because I said it before he did, lots of rats around the ring.
You're right and you're wrong. When he's referring to rats, he's not necessarily referring to the marks in the ring
Oh,
side.
no, not at all.
No.
No.
He's talking about road rats.
Mm-hmm. And not very attractive ones. But be that as
That's
it
why
may,
they're road rats,
well,
Nelson.
There's
They're
no
from the
road.
OBT.
Shit. Yeah, so, that was what I noticed. The ladder match, though, Kazarian and Christian Cage, amazing. Amazing, and a very stiff match, folks. The ladder didn't give in any scenario. Bruises, cuts, scrapes, all kinds of stuff all over both those men. I had the privilege of being basically on the rail and saw just an amazing amount of commitment and desire and enthusiasm from the performers. The ladder match was great. Cage was great. Steiners were scary. Scott and Rick Steiner, literally, all they did was come in there and throw people around. There seemed to be no regard for anyone else's safety, and they just literally came in and tossed people around the ring. Very scary at times. Scott Steiner, not so much a genetic freak anymore as opposed
Because
to a
he
genetic
had-
failure.
Yeah,
What he's looking at to me.
again, because he looks like a stripper at 55.
A male stripper?
No, a stripper. Think about, she looks great when
He's
her body's...
void.
Listen. And remember, just keep it sexy. The body looks great at 35, but, you had all this work done. Then 40. Then you're starting to work the afternoon shifts. Then... Do you get where I'm going now?
And then you're part of the lunch buffet.
That's right. Free tacos.
Robert Roode is over in my book. There are two people that went way over that I didn't expect to at that pay-per-view.
But you said
Roode
Robert
being the
Roode
first
for a
one.
while.
Yes, but now he's over in my book. Robert Roode and Chris Sabin. First off, the Motor City Machine Guns match going up against the Dudleys, 3D, Team 3D, if you will. Got to give credit to Team 3D, and we've said on this show, obviously they're a lot larger than they were at one time in their
But
careers.
this is sharp.
Very sharp.
This is sharp.
Very well played to the fans, very well acknowledged by their own selves. Remember, keep in mind, folks, on Impact, they ask for ding-dongs. 12 dozen ding-dongs.
No, 10 dozen. Then,
10 dozen ding-dongs.
12.
12. And, they know what they are, but can they, and we've said on this program too, can they still bring it and can they still deliver in that ring? You're damn right they can, and they do it each and every week. And this spot that they're in with the X Division, one of the most intriguing storylines in TNA right now. As we talked about just before you arrived here, Meathead, the Booker T debut was fulfilling, to say the least. The Charmel run-in was a surprise at the end because you didn't
what was
really
missing,
expect
though?
her, but you did.
Oh, it's on. It is so on.
Well,
It'll
she
be
did.
on.
She did on Impact on Thursday. She said, "Oh no, you didn't," to Christian
Yeah.
Cage.
I needed to see her pull her Lee press-ons off.
Where was Petey Williams, folks? Petey Williams, not at the pay-per-view. Thank God we saw him Thursday night on Impact. We're bringing back the top 5 this week. Yeah, you missed pre-show, so you don't know that. But it's
WTF?
It's not a weekly top 5, which is what that WTF meant.
Right.
It's not a weekly top 5.
No, I was asking you,
It
WTF.
is our 5 top names overall in the business right now, not week to week. So we'll talk more about that later when Frank kicks off that segment. But be that as it may, Petey Williams, not used on the pay-per-view at all. We had a match between Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt. Sanjay Dutt, one of my favorites. The match was great.
No,
Both men
obviously you're
delivered.
calling them by their old names, not their new gimmick names.
Black Machismo and what is Sanjay going by now?
Guru.
And, good match. Decent match.
Oh,
Fans
yeah.
weren't into it at all. Absolutely at all. That was shocking. It's
Now,
absolutely
what was the
shocking.
reason for that?
Where was the
I don't know,
placement
Frank.
on the card?
It's somewhere near the middle.
Middle.
Somewhere near the middle.
That's
I don't know
why.
if it was before or after.
I think they're
the-
mentally
the,
tired. I think if you start them off, if you open up the show with a Black Machismo and
Well, the Black Rain and Abyss opened up the show. Abyss was thrown off the
then
stage, where he was in the case, by the way.
yeah.
Was thrown
and
off
then
the stage.
Relic came around as well.
Relic K backwards because it's killer.
Right.
But overall, here's what I noticed at the TNA show. In watching, I tend to, when I go to these shows, watch the wrestling product, watch the production elements.
I watch the fans.
Watch the staff, watch the fans. And what
It's
I
really
picked up
busy. You're
from the
really
staff-
busy. You're really busy.
I can multitask.
No, I mean, I do that too, actually.
What
Go
I
ahead.
picked up from the staff, and when I say staff, I'm talking today. I'm talking Jarrett, who I saw. I'm talking Dutch Mantell. I'm talking Vince Russo. I'm talking Jeremy Borish. I'm talking Dave Pinzer. I'm talking the referees, Earl. Everybody. There is a clear passion that these people have for TNA and for the product in the ring. They are bought in. They are not necessarily employees of TNA. They are bought in. They are in this thing to see it be as successful from the moment the show starts to the moment the show ends as anybody else. And for that, I respect all of those people I just mentioned, including Dixie Carter, who was there and I had the privilege of meeting and speaking to briefly. Everybody, TNA is almost like a family. And now I'm going to make a statement I never thought I would make. Not listening to them, watching Tenay and West call the show, was
You're going to go there.
enlightening because, and when I go to WWE shows, I watch JR King, Cole, Taz, Styles. I'm sorry, Cole, JBL, Taz, Styles, whatever. Because you learn a lot from what you're seeing. Are they reading the script and following along, or are they passionately calling the match? Tenay and West are passionately calling the match. West, much more so than Tenay, but very into it. Now, in watching this past week Impact...
The problem I have with West, in that he's calling it so
Maybe
passionate. The problem that I have with West, in that he is calling it so passionately.
It comes off.
Being a, I'm not going to say I'm a voiceover guy, but I've done some voiceover work. He needs to learn where to breathe. When you speak all the way to the point where you're out of breath,
That's the problem.
that's a problem.
Why did Dusty Rhodes get away with it for so long?
Because it was amusing, because he
In the
wasn't
bad
using
way.
English. He wasn't using real English. That wasn't the Queen's English.
Listening to Impact on Thursday, after watching the passion from these performers and these employees, I heard a different Don West, Meathead. I heard a different Mike Tenay, Frank. I heard two men who were delivering what was happening there and the emotion they were feeling off of what was happening in the Impact Zone. Markedly different. If that would have been the first time I heard Don West, I would have been, oh, this guy's pretty good. Something happened. Something has happened.
Well, I mean, this is a
Well, it couldn't
2007.
get any worse.
2007 is a year of revelations because, again, I've mentioned this.
Dog.
I've mentioned this over and
This is
over.
Chinese New Year.
I noticed Jeff Hardy again.
Something's wrong.
No, things have happened.
You've seen the light.
No, I grew the Johnny Cakes is what I grew.
Overall,
sexy.
Great show. Very good show. Very well received and well delivered, and it was great to be in attendance. It appears, folks, as if I will also be at the January pay-per-view show for TNA, as any chance I get to go to Orlando, I'm taking advantage of. So
OBT.
we'll bring you more information on that as it becomes available, and thank you for all of you who tuned in to. I was only on that street once because I had to go past the Citrus Bowl, the site of WrestleMania 24. Thank you very much. The forum for the updates, live from the
Yes.
Impact Zone. The pay-per-view.
I want to know, how did you watch that entire show with a big red ring
Yeah.
around your head?
It's a halo because I'm an angel.
It was red.
It was
You're
done in
the
post.
devil. And by the way, Frank, I need to ask you.
Yes.
Damien is attempting to grow some hair. I have what I have.
I-
What about you, Pat?
I am all about
It's all
subtlety. I don't have
Right.
to be in your face like you are.
The first time I
You know,
brought
under the
the
radar.
first time,
I'm a stealth bomber.
The first time I brought the flavor
There's
saver
your under the
in,
radar.
it was very subtle. You just happened to be right there. What about you, Patch Adams?
It ain't gonna happen.
He's not going to sing and dance. He's not going to grow facial hair.
When you meet certain people, as I do, it ain't gonna happen.
This only took a little while. I mean, I
Yeah,
can give you one of
yeah.
those testosterone HGH.
Let's go back to the news
That's
from
all.
professional wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Did you say something about GHB?
Want to
Is
get
that your
back?
secret?
No.
Speaking of getting well and health, Nick Bockwinkel actually went in for a triple bypass surgery on November the 8th, and we understand he is better, convalescing, and surprise need for that surgery. As typically when you get those, it's like you go in and then later that day you're getting a triple bypass without expecting it. So Nick
Well, what
Bockwinkel-
happens, I do have a little background on this, having not personally gone through this, but someone very, very, very right there has had to go through this, and many members of my family. What happens is, after a while, you start to feel a little dogged, and your hard living and your poor eating, your arteries, they basically become clogged with grease and fat. So when they get in there and finally, you say, I can't take the pain anymore, they get in there and say, wow, this is blown up. We need to do a bypass. We need to get past this. We need to put balloons in there, put stents in there, do whatever you have to do. But yeah, they'll schedule it that day.
Or as close as possible.
Yeah.
So good well wishes go out to Nick Bockwinkel, who's been on this very program, in this very studio, by the way.
Yep.
Has Nick Bockwinkel been, obviously a legendary performer here in the Milwaukee area.
And a hell of a
We had
nice
the privilege
guy.
of seeing
Very
him
nice
again just a couple of weeks past at the Legends of Wrestling Fan Fest. Speaking of people we've seen and have been on this very program, the ODB, Jess Dalton,
Don't tell Frank.
She kicked my ass.
is now contracted with TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. We saw her on Genesis, and we now will see a lot more of her in TNA, and there is a lot of her to see.
Is there a chance that she's going to have a wardrobe malfunction like Kong did?
How those things stayed in at Genesis, I truly don't know. And there must be.
You're talking about
we
Kong
need to see
or
an
ODB?
episode of Modern Marvels as to what they're using to keep
Are you talking about Kong?
female wrestlers. No, ODB.
ODB?
And
Oh.
Tracy Brooks, by the way.
Oh,
Thank you very much, by the way.
No problem.
Tracy, honey, just let him free.
I'm free.
TNA has made some adjustments
Dude,
to their creative team, ladies and gentlemen. Rumor has it that a couple of people have added the team, such as Jeremy Borash, and
JB.
in the back, and Mike Today, along with Abyss, who may be involved as well. Joining the existing team of Jeff Jarrett, Dutch Mantel, and Vince Russo. Not sure of roles right now, but said that everybody seems to have a little bit of their own agenda and their own favorites, if you will. With the number of people in the TNA roster, that couldn't be a bad thing, because you would think most everybody except Petey Williams would be represented. In that
Matter of fact, also my mustache has a developmental deal as well in TNA.
Sting's contract is set to expire soon with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. He's been signing, I believe, 12-month deals regularly with TNA and has not signed an extension. TNA wants to get 12 more months out of him, as I believe he and Scott Hall are big staples, and the ratings go up. When Scott Hall came on for the 2-hour Impact, it was their highest-rated 2-hour episode ever. Didn't go up by much, but there were some ratings increases. So should Sting stick around with TNA? Sting, who did the JOB on the PPV this past Sunday.
Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with Sting. Just don't thrust him into everything that's going on. But you know what? The way they're using him right now, I'm happy.
One more year would be sufficient, and just like you said, not in everything. Just
I mean,
Oh, it's not in everything. Kurt Angle's
Kurt
in
Angle
everything.
is in everything. Kurt and Karen. And by the way, Karen, just let him free, honey. Just let him free.
I'm not sure how much captivity there is there,
But
comparatively speaking.
it's okay.
That's not bad.
Sting?
Sting, yay.
TNA is set to do a tour of Canada,
Now that one makes sense. That one won't get canceled like Tel Aviv.
Israel. Montreal
Montreal.
on December 27th, and Quebec on December the 28th
Quebec.
are the two towns that they, both French-speaking, correct?
Yes.
Frank is our international
Montreal's
traveler.
kind of half and half.
Montreal.
Right.
Montreal. Speaking of Montreal, Sylvain Grenier was at the Genesis pay-per-view. Apparently he's doing some work for TNA. Someone on the message board decided to
Is
try
he
to
gonna do
correct
the
me.
dance and all that?
But, oh, you know what? There could be a dance-off. It could be Sylvain Grenier and Alex Wright.
With special
That's
guest
Winter
referee.
King.
Special guest referee.
Oh! And Disco Inferno would come back. That'd be great. That'd be great.
That
The
would be a
Dance of
fun
Fools were former WCW Tag Team Champions.
Yes.
Another return to WWE Meathead. Before you got here, we talked about, forget his name, somebody returned on Raw this past Monday. And then next week,
Gross. I wasn't going to
Next
clothesline you, but it had to be something.
next week, Ric Flair is coming back. And this past SmackDown taping.
I'm not a Ric Hair flater.
You're not fair to Flair, is what you're saying.
But come on, Rick.
Stop it. Don't you come here late
on.
and start hating on
I'm not
the
hating
Nature
Ric
Boy.
Flair. Is he going to wrestle with a shirt on? or
Nobody
off?
said. Oh, because you think of the last Nitro when he wrestled with his shirt on.
He wrestled for the last year with his shirt on.
Norman Esmaile,
Ooh.
who has been on this very program, folks.
Yes.
We most recently saw him in TNA. Well, if you were in Florida this past week at some of the WWE shows, and specifically the Raw show, you saw him in a dark match.
Ooh.
Norman Esmaile, speaking of dark matches, the next night, Tuesday night, in Tampa, Florida, I believe, it was the Nasty Boys, Knobs and Sags,
Yeah.
reuniting for a
And it
dark
felt so
tag
good.
team match. Apparently the match went pretty long, was not quite in the time constraints that they were allowed. A stiff match against Dave Taylor and another individual. and said to not have done themselves any favors with the Nasty Boys with WWE.
If it was Dave Taylor, then it was definitely the other guy that he's been carting around too. Younger guy wears a kilt. I forget
He's 21.
his
I forget his name. The interns.
name. Yeah, but you know who I'm
We
talking
got a lot
about.
more interns out there right now. I consider almost every member of the forum.
And every one of them wanted to touch my mustache. I didn't get it.
Nasty Boys said they still look pretty good, decent. Now keep in mind they're from Tampa. They,
Keep in mind they didn't look good when they.
No,
I mean,
they're
we were up
okay.
right next to him. I mean, the guy only had 14.
Brad Knob's been on this program as well.
Yep.
Was it Sags? I think it was Sags. Jerry Sags. Was on the
Jerry
program.
Sags.
Jerry Sags was on the program. Excuse me. Pardon me. On this program. God dang. How many people have we talked about that have been on this? Bachwinkle, ODB,
Just in this segment.
Sags. Let's see. Who else? Yeah. Norman S. Smiley. You got a lot of people on here.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, enough tooting our own horn. Matt Hardy. Out for 8 to 10 weeks. A ruptured appendix.
That he had to go in for right away. Otherwise, that's
Straight away, chap. Straight away from the Smackdown tapings, I believe it was, this past Tuesday night, or from the Survivor Series this past Sunday night, not sure exactly, but taken in for emergency surgery, and appendix removed. He will be out 8 to 10 weeks, or up to 3 months,
Let me
depending
have
on how
this.
you ask.
Now that we, again, I wasn't in control from watching you guys talk during the first half hour, and
Flirting with interns. They were talking to my ear, telling me, get this guy out of here.
Duh.
That's why we had to go to commercials so fast.
but Matt Hardy is now one of the guys out, even though you have this huge stream of guys coming back in. Will people care when he comes back?
Oh, yeah!
You couldn't pay me enough.
No, because it won't.
No, that's part of the song, Frank.
Yeah, no, I understand. But
Okay.
Chris Masters has been released. The masterpiece, no more. Chris Masters gone from WWE. He was cited for another violation of the wellness policy, which he says was simply residual stuff left over from some stuff he had taken before. 60-day suspension, followed up the next day by a phone call from John Titus saying, "You're fired. You're fired.
You fired.
You're fired." And he is gone. He has to revert to his original name, his God-given, of Chris Mordetsky, and is accepting indie bookings under that
What
name.
really kills me is the fact that not only do you murder, names from across the pond and Canadian names, now you're trying to do Polish names as well.
Did I say it wrong? Polish boy?
I can't read your scratch.
I didn't know Meathead was Polish.
The
name?
The gimmick, the whole thing is Polish.
I said it right.
Mordetsky.
Burdetsky.
Don't you have to do this when you say it?
No,
Mordetsky. Well,
that's
Frank does.
Italian.
Well, he's saying it.
Burdetsky. Ukraine is not weak.
Master's going to miss him.
Who?
No.
Wait, what you
I
did
enjoyed
miss
the masterpiece.
was Damien's demonstration of what Masters looks like when he debuts. Oh, you've been busted. Hey, you want to come back? Oh, you've been busted.
He's like the Macy's Day balloon.
You going to watch that parade tomorrow?
No.
Sure.
Are they having a parade? The Raiders are on strike. Oh. Lex Luger is still hospitalized, folks. Again, not hearing much about this. However, Lex Luger has not regained movement in his arms or legs since collapsing at a wrestling convention out west a couple of weeks ago. He has been moved to Atlanta, his home, and we wish Lex the best in his recovery. Ring of Honor will be debuting their new pay-per-view called Man Up. It's going to be on November the 30th. It's going to be on pay-per-view. It was actually taped in Chicago Ridge, Illinois at the Frontier Fieldhouse. And that will feature a main event of a ladder match, a tag team ladder match, where the Briscoe brothers will take on Kevin Steen and El Generico. I'm saying that wrong because I'm not Hispanic. They are the tag team champions.
Now that you played off well. Good job.
They are the tag team champions, and they will be. All right, so Ring of Honor, Sunday, not Sunday, but November 30th, which is a Friday, on pay-per-view, in demand. Not everywhere. Again, not available to everybody. But
Check out
order if you
ROH
can. Wrestling.com.
Wrestling.com.
TNA Genesis, they taped something for a Mexican thing they were doing later on in the year. Hector Guerrero was involved. Hector looks a lot like Eddie. Well, Hector comes out, Eddie. Wrestling fans, I am begging you. It is not a sign of respect to chant a dead man's name every time somebody Hispanic comes out to wrestle. It is almost insulting, and I am not sure why. Only the smartest of wrestling fan sees that. Am I missing something, Meathead? Am I missing something, Frank? Is it truly an honor to have your name chanted in remembrance?
It's
anytime?
truly a disrespect to continually gain favor for yourself to chant someone else's name.
That's the difference.
But the
I don't care if
boys aren't
it's-
soliciting these chants. These are the fans doing these chants. That they think it's. I don't know if it's trying to be cool or trying to be in the know or trying. I don't know what it is.
No, that's it. It's in the know, which I think it is. But it depends. It depends on where you are. Because if
When Brett comes out, they don't chant Owen. I don't get it. I don't see the. I don't know.
it's a different mentality, which is not a bad thing in my opinion with the Latino community. They're very, I don't know what the right word is, but
The right word to say on TV. Yes.
but they're very
La
faithful.
Familia.
They're faithful to their community, and if it is a Latino community that's chanting his name, I can understand that. But if it's just, hey, we're in Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas,
I have been there.
Pig's Knuckle,
and
Arkansas.
they're doing that, then that's, well,
You know, I've
you're
been
just
there.
showing that you're smart. Great.
I met a girl that had 3 teeth.
Hey, that's
And,
She had the
a
prettiest
lot of
smile.
gum,
She had the prettiest smile in town.
Sorry about that tangent. Let's go now to the match of the week, ladies and gentlemen. This week it's brought to us again by WWE Raw. Now, who do I think had the better program this week? I think Impact was actually a little better. Last week's Impact was actually a little better than this past week's Raw. But Jeff Hardy versus Umenga for the Intercontinental Championship with the Snitsky run-in, Triple H run-in, was, in my opinion, a longer match than we thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
a better match than we thought it was going to be, and the match of the week this week.
Okay.
Let's talk about the honors. Pro Wrestling Report honors coming to you on December 14th, 2007, 7 o'clock p.m. right here on pwrshow.com. And the voting is blowing up mad style, if you will, on the site. Remember, December 1st is when we switch over to the final ballots. Final ballots will be available December 1st on pwrshow.com. Your tag team categories will be updated this week. Go vote now and pick your finalist for the tag team section of the PWR honors. Surprising votes thus far, and the key is, folks, Mita, Frank, the viewers out there, the IWC, if you will, can't see who's ahead or who's not ahead, thus not skewing the voting, which may have happened in past years. In past years, you've been able to see the results. This time, they're being kept under lock and key by the law firm of Eisenberg, Weigel, and Carlson. And they are...
Also, sub held by Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
I thought Eisenberg, Weigel, and Carlson was a better joke.
No, because that
well,
sounds
Dewey
legitimate.
has been around for a little bit.
Eisenberg is not legitimate anymore, in case you haven't been keeping up.
No, but that's a local joke. Remember, wide audience.
So make sure you vote, folks. Click on the link at the bottom of the page for the PWR honors. And we would also like to go ahead and give our thanks, if you will, to the life and times and career of the fabulous Moolah, who also passed away. Very, very sad, actually, to see Moolah gone. And as we said before, if you haven't seen Lipsticks and Dynamite, the documentary on female wrestling, make sure you take a look at that. It's available at your favorite retailers, and I'm sure somewhere for free on the internet. Let's go to the 3 count now, boys. And
Are we gonna
we
do
said top 5 is returning, but the 3 count will be a recurring group of people. Not a recurring group of people. It will be a changing group of people each week. That's the 3 most influential people that week. Our top 5 will be comprised of our 5 favorite professional wrestling talents in the business at this time. So
That's a lot of thinking.
occasionally there will be a change to the top 5. But rarely will there be a change to the top 5. Each week there will be a new 3 count. And we'll start this week's 3 count with the TNA 3 count for each of us, starting to my right with the man who is an elephant, the man they call me.
I am not an elephant. I am not an elephant.
Your TNA 3, Mita.
Number 1 on TNA is going to go right down to the tag team slot in TNA of the Outsiders. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash.
Hall's not looking so good.
Not yours. Hall looks fat and tubby, but amusing.
There you go.
Fat and tubby, but amusing. That's number 1.
Still wrestling regularly in Puerto Rico, by the way, so don't think there's rust there.
Yeah. Number 1 is the Outsiders. Number 2 is Christian Cage, who
Christian!
had fallen off of my 3 counts and fallen off my top 5s, but always there and always in mind. And number 3
He drives a Porsche, you know.
is, can you dig it, sucker?
Spinner-Rooney! Spinner-Rooney! Good God almighty! Spinner-Rooney! Ah, son of a bitch! Frank Cosentino, your TNA 3.
Well, it's got to be Booker T starting my list out. Just he looked relieved and happy to be there. So that was good. And I'm going to go with Charmel because that was a surprise for me. I didn't think she
Oh, no, you didn't.
But I'm also going to go with Christian Cage as he just delivers each week.
The 3 count from this point in the table, folks, for TNA. Starting off with Tracy Brooks. Tracy Brooks, who finally stepped up and stood up to Robert Roode this past Thursday on Impact. Very well done. And I got to give Robert Roode credit, because on Genesis, when Tracy Brooks passed out, which some say was a legit fainting, he's going for his finisher in the ring, and he looks over at her. He still does it. That's just perfect. Robert Roode's great. And that's why he is number 2 in my 3 count, by the way, Robert Roode. Followed up by the top person in TNA this week, in my book, is none other than Booker T, NA, as he says. Yep. WWE 3, Meathead, your top 3 peeps, if you will, in WWE this week.
Number 1, he's got about 4 different colors in his hair, but that's okay.
The
Jeff
rainbow-haired warrior.
Yeah, Jeff Hardy is number 1 in the 3 count for WWE. Number 2 in the 3 count is, she's added an addition to her finisher now, and that's basically to suck face with her female competitor. Oh, Mickey, I am thinking roast beef. And number 3.
Do you ever have beef and cheddar?
Yeah. Number 3.
I think I have a mild concussion.
He's concussed.
Chris Jericho, Y2J.
I'm going to finish the show.
As everyone on the forum has said, as everyone has been saying for weeks, we know it's going to happen, whatever, I will still mark out. I stood up. Oh, it's time, it's time,
What were you wearing?
time. All my clothes.
Thank God for that. This is what that was.
Well, the neighbors sometimes,
And I had gotten home just in time to watch it live. Because I said, no matter what, normally I
You
DVR
gotta see
stuff.
that live.
I had to see that live.
Yeah.
And when the marathon runner was coming, I knew that something was going to happen to him before he got to the building. Because Orton kept saying, I deserve this. There's nobody left.
Nobody else. It's so cliched.
Rock did
so
that when,
cliched.
Rock did that when Goldberg showed up and blah. I don't know. So there's my 3 count.
You didn't give...
Yes,
you
I
gave
did.
3. Frank, sorry. Your 3
It's your
count for
first day. I know
WWE.
you're concussed.
I was actually pissed that you showed up. I was hoping it would be Frank and I this week. Sometimes you need a break.
Randy Orton's going to be my number 3.
Break me off a piece of that meathead stash. Give
Number
me
2
a
is
break.
going to go to Undertaker.
Who?
The Undertaker goes
Because we hate him, apparently.
Yeah, you guys don't like him. So
Oh, you're back to reading the forum again, huh?
Well,
And Y2J has to be just most. It's there. He was there, and we kind of went.
He was there and we marked out for a shiny
Don't
vest.
you have rats?
Oh, I've got rats. I
How you gonna
call
pick
them,
on 'em?
I call them cable rats.
Yeah. WWE 3.
I get them with the mustache.
From me, ladies and gentlemen, starts off with Randy Orton, best prick heel in the history of, in the recent history of wrestling, in my opinion. Opening a cat of the ass whip is Santino Marella, who's next, and across the board,
You know
folks,
what's
for
great?
the first time ever, I think the top person this week at WWE, according to the 3 of us, Y2J, Chris Jericho.
Morella's formula for what he says is so simple. Just cross it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
And before the J out, I has an
delivery,
orgasm here.
It's a shame of what you did to that donkey.
Oh, so
But
and then away comes
did he keep it sexy?
I think he brought sexy back, by the way. Again, folks, now it's time for the top 5. We're going to lay down our dictate on what the top 5 is and not touch it again until we need to make a change. So, I will give that title of running this segment to the man who did it oh so well for oh so many years, which means we can only change it when he's here, Frank Constantino.
The top 5. We're going to do it. We're going to start with the man in my
Doing it well. The elephant.
You can dome me. You can dome me.
I mean, I'm hung like an elephant because I got a big trunk to play.
You can
You
dome
can
me.
dome in the morning, you can dome in the night, you can dome when you want to dome.
We have less than 5 minutes left in the show.
To my
Interns
far
are screaming in my
And
ear.
he'll vote that way.
Interns are
Mustache or
screaming
no
in my
mustache.
ear.
The man they call me.
Number 5 of my top 5
Did it for about 10 years. Should
is
be
going to
pretty
go out
familiar.
to Jeff Hardy. He will stay.
No.
He will
He's
stay
in there. He's entrenched. You're
in
putting him
number
in your
5.
permanent top 5.
In number 5. He's earned his spot. He looked like he belonged with Triple H. He looked like he belonged with Shawn Michaels. He looked like he belonged. I'm there.
You ain't got to sell it to me.
Number 4 in my top 5 in the wrestling world is going to go out to Christian Cage. Number 4 in my top 5, Christian Cage. Number 3 goes out to Mr. Kane! Kennedy!
Now you wait.
How much time do we have left? Kennedy! That's number 3. Number 2 on my top 5 is going to go to the man that I like to refer as... No, I'm just kidding. Number 2 is Mickey James.
That's
Yum,
not a
yum.
man.
I know. But number 1...
He always right back and to the left.
Number 1 is Y2J, and trust me, that one won't be moving.
Now we go.
Now, I will say, I don't know if the interns went over this with you explicitly,
It can't change.
but no, it can change. But if someone leaves or is on the injured reserve or whatever, they're off the top 5 for that period of time that they're
That's
out.
fine.
Just saying.
All right. Now we go to the man in our middle.
Sounds like the rules from the draft again. You see how
The
they
man in the
just
middle
changed there?
does not vote middle. He votes left the majority of the time. The definitive top 5 and his stapled top 5 now. David Nelson.
Barack and Hillary are within a point of each other, by the way. Don't you dare.
I looked.
Number 5, ladies and gentlemen, starting at the bottom, going to the top of my proverbial top 5. The top 5 every week is none other than Candice Michelle.
Walkie's own.
I miss her.
I miss her too.
I
I think she's with a doctor, so I mean...
He's a psych back, a chiropractor.
Well, I mean, she's the one that broke a clavicle. Number 4.
Is none other than Christian Cage. He is the instant classic and has been a classic for a very long time. Number 3, staying there in that spot, Petey Williams, the Canadian Destroyer, the single greatest finishing move in the history of professional
When
wrestling.
done by Petey Williams.
And number 2 is Ain't No Stopping Me Now on ECW with a blonde goatee as well. Shelton Benjamin.
You're not going to do that next, are you?
And number 1 is the man who puts eyes on the screen, asses in the seats, no matter where he goes and what he does, Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Frank, I need to make a note real quick to Damien's top 5. Notice how the little fruit-haired, rainbow-colored warrior wrestling guy was not on it?
Well, I figured you'd put him on yours, so didn't want to have a dude.
No.
Well, I'm going to put him on mine because my number 5 starts off with Y2J and you'll stay there for the
I was talking about Hardy. It's okay.
The best for me gave
What?
it away.
He borrowed that from Jeff Hardy, by the way.
I think he did.
No.
That's
Number
your
5.
number
You didn't put
Y2J.
Y2J in your list either.
He's not on. No, he's on his. He's not on mine.
That's what I thought you were
I
referring
mentioned
to.
he didn't put Jeff Hardy on his list.
TikTok.
He's a Jeff
TikTok.
Hardy guy.
TikTok.
Number 4
We're
on
going to
Frank's
overtime
list.
here.
We're going overtime. Number 4, let's go. I like The Undertaker the last couple weeks. I'm going to keep him there.
He's doing that because people think we hate him. So now that Frank
I'm
picked
gonna
him,
do it.
they're going to think we hate him more.
I like him. Number
It's a
3,
swerve, damn it! It's a swerve.
also Christian Cage. Number 2,
No, that's a dupe.
we'll go to Randy Orton. And I was going to put Randy Orton number 1 and Booker T number...
So you're saying your number 1 guy all the time now is Booker T.
no, it'll be Randy Orton, Booker T number 2.
Booker T number 2. So he swerved Damien with the pen.
There you go.
I don't know why I have to write this down. Note to interns: they need to start writing this crap down.
Right.
And when I say crap, I'm referring to your list and your list because mine is the one everybody
It's
wants
the
to hear.
definitive list.
Thank you, Frank, for slipping that in. Thank you also for tuning into this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report. Folks, we'll be back next week with a brand new edition of the show, and also we'll be bringing you the preview for Blizzard Brawl 3 coming to Milwaukee on December 7th,
Yes.
2007.
And by the
Get
way,
more information
soak
by
this
clicking
up.
on the Blizzard Brawl link
It's getting shaved
on
off.
the PWRshow.com home page. You want a red circle too?
Yeah, you know what?
To go with the rash you have?
The rashes from others. Minions, IWC.
Interns.
Crop this picture if you could do a thing with it, because this is getting shaved off in about 15 minutes.
Thank you
I
very
did
much
this
for tuning
for
in,
you.
ladies and gentlemen, this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report. We'll be back next week. Have a happy Thanksgiving holiday.